He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin is out. Larry O'Connor is in. The coup is complete. No, actually, he's just on day off. It's okay. Don't worry about it. There's no coup. Love Mark. I'm as disappointed as you are, I'll be honest with you. My evening is not complete unless I hear the Mark Levin show, and now you're stuck with me. But I'm going to make it worth your while. I'm paying out cash money to everybody who listens, right? I mean, I don't know how I'm going to get it to you, but we'll work it out in the end. Just trust me on this. Stick with me. I'll either get you some cash money or maybe an opportunity to invest in a timeshare. Either way, thanks for listening tonight. Larry O'Connor, you can check me out on WMAL in Washington, D.C. That's the home radio station for the great one, Mark Levin, in your nation's capital. I do the morning show there every day with Julie Gunlock, Patrice Onwuka. Bethany Mandel's been filling in quite a bit lately for an ailing Julie Gunlock, who is out recovering right now. If you'd like to help her out, go to givesendgo.com/Julie Gunlock. You can also check out my podcast at Town Hall. All right, enough about me. Let's talk about you. 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. I have a very simple question for you. Why in the hell do Democrats not want to vote on the SAVE Act? Forget about passing the SAVE Act. Forget about supporting the SAVE Act. They don't even want a vote. Why do you think that is? I've got a hunch. And as usual, I'll lay out the facts for you, and then we can share some opinions. Always facts before opinions, though. Do you know what the SAVE Act is, by the way? It's the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. I do love it when they make their acronyms. It's the SAVE Act. It's H.R. 22 in this session of Congress. 22, that means it was pretty early on. In fact, yes, they passed it in the House April 10th. And then they sent it to the Senate, because that's what happens to a bill that passes the House. It goes over to the Senate. You remember Schoolhouse Rock. And now it's just sitting there. Just sitting there. I wish Republicans had the majority in the Senate. Then we could actually take up that bill and we could... Oh, wait a second. Stupid me. Republicans do have the majority in the Senate. Why the hell has it been sitting there for, what, 300 days? Well, because it's very controversial, Larry. That's the problem. The SAVE Act is incredibly controversial. It's a awful thing. It's going to absolutely rip our nation apart. It's so controversial. Oh, really? What's in the SAVE Act? Okay, so here's the deal with the SAVE Act. This is why it's so controversial. Listen to me now. It'll all become clear. Here's what's controversial. If you register to vote in the United States of America, you have to prove that you're a United States citizen and therefore eligible to legally vote. There you go. That's what's controversial about it. Oh, actually, they've also added to it since then. They've added one other caveat. When you go to vote and you say that you're, John Smith or, Abdul Muhammad or Shlomo Bernstein or, I don't know. I wish I could say a Somali name, but I do like Shlomo is my favorite Jewish name. Who doesn't love a good Shlomo? Not one again. If you're Patrick O'Brien, if you're, all right, enough with the ethnicities. When you go up to your polling place on Election Day and you say, hey, this is me, I'd like to vote, they actually will then stop and say, okay, I know you say that you're that person, but could you produce some identification, please? The same kind of ID that you have to use to get on a plane or to cash a check or to open a bank account or to go into a courtroom or to visit Congress or to enter any sort of government building or, a photo ID, the kind of thing that you have to be a functioning member of society. Could you show me the photo ID, please, before you vote? Yeah, That's the other part that's super duper controversial. You want to know how controversial this is? Well, let me turn to that right-wing echo chamber, that crazy, off-the-edge MAGA network known as CNN.
The American people are with Nicki Minaj, because what are we talking about here? So take a look here. Favor voter ID to vote. Look, I got all this polling on the screen going back since 2018. You'll notice on all of it, it's all north of 75%, 76%, 76%, 76%, 81%, and then 83% in the last year of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj. They favor photo ID to be able to vote.
Now, that's Harry Enton. He's the polling guy there on CNN, who also channels Jimmy Cagney every time he does a stand-up in front of the little touchscreen. And when he said 76%, 76%, he was looking at the past several years where this question was asked of the American people. 2018, 76%. 2021, 76%. 2023, 76%. 2024, 81%. 2025, 83%. That's pretty consistent. In fact, it's consistent in its trend upwards since 2018. 83% of the American people agree. When was the last time you saw the American people, 83% of whom would agree on anything? Will 83% of the American people agree that ice cream is just deliciously magnificent? Will 83% of the American people agree that water is wet? When have 83% of the American people agreed on anything with regard to our government function or our politics in this country? Oh, gosh, why can't we all get along? Why can't Republicans and Democrats hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and actually work together for once on something that the American people agree on, right? You hear it all the time. You hear that platitude all the time. We just really need to cut through the partisan noise and work together on something that the American people agree on. Here it is. Here it is on a silver platter, 83 freaking percent. By the way, the remaining 17%, pretty sure not really citizens of this country. Just a hunch. I could be wrong. Those 17% are like, wait a second, you got to have a photo ID? Well, that's going to screw everything up on Election Day for me. 83% agree. Go ahead, Harry Enton, take it away.
What about by party? What's the party breakdown?
Yeah, normally you might expect, hey, there'd be a big divide by party with Republicans really for it and Democrats really against it. But not really here. I mean, just take a look here. Favor photo ID to vote. You got 95% of Republicans, pretty much all of them, but even 71% of Democrats favor photo ID to vote. So again, Nicki Minaj posting that on X. And what you see is that the American people, actually, it's not really all that controversial. The American people are with Nicki Minaj, whether they are Republican or even if they are Democrats. We're talking about 7 in 10 Democrats agreeing with Nicki Minaj that you, in fact, should show a voter photo ID to vote.
Okay, so just so you know, he keeps talking about Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj is this hip-hop actress, singer, performer with really long fingernails. And I always confuse her with Cardi B. I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the accent from, New York and the fact that they both dress outlandishly and they sing songs that I don't listen to. So obviously they're all the same person. Nicki Minaj, however, is a very devout Christian who sort of got red-pilled by this Trump administration because they're the only ones who actually spoke out against the slaughter of black African Christians in Nigeria. And suddenly now Nicki Minaj is like totally, the queen of MAGA. All right. So Nicki Minaj took to X and she tweeted. Do you tweet on X or do you she expounded on X. That's what she did. She expounded. She even extrapolated. All right. She said, what sensible, forward-thinking, cutting-edge leading nation is having a debate on whether or not there should be voter ID? They're actually fighting not to have people present ID while voting for your leaders. Do you get it? Do you get it now? Yeah, we get it. That's why Harry Enton keeps referring to Nicki Minaj inexplicably in this segment here on CNN. So now maybe this is the secret sauce. Maybe we figured out exactly why the Democrats oppose this. As you just heard the party breakdown, yeah, sure, 71% of Democrats are in favor of it, but 95% of Republicans. So in other words, since all the Republicans like it, we've got to oppose it. We don't have any principled position necessarily, but we just don't want to make Republicans happy. We would rather tick off 71% of our own party, the Democrats, than make 95% of Republicans happy. So the leaders oppose it. And I don't mean Democrats oppose it, because as you see, Democrats favor it by 71%. When I say Democrat, I don't mean, your grandma who still has a picture of JFK in the hallway next to the Pope and Jesus as you walk in the door to go visit. Yes, my grandma was like that. No, not her. Not because, you know the Democrats I'm talking about, the sweet old ladies who still think the Kennedys are all dreamy. Not RFK Jr., I mean senior, like the OG Kennedys. They vote Democrat because their parents voted for FDR and threatened their lives if they didn't continue to vote Democrat. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the leaders. I'm talking about the elected officials. I'm talking about Schumer and Pelosi.
What's the racial breakdown?
Okay.
And Jeffries and all of those people. That's who I mean by Democrats. It's the elected officials. It's the leaders who are holding up even 71% of their own party from getting what they want. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, yeah, but it's because, as everybody knows, photo ID and having to show proof of citizenship, that's, say it with me, racist. It's racist, We've been told this for decades, that it's racist to demand photo ID to vote because, wait for it now, it's very difficult for a person with black skin in America circa 2026 to obtain a photo ID. That's not me saying that, because that's pretty damn racist, and I ain't racist. No. That's not me saying it. That's the aforementioned Democrat leaders, the elected officials. That's Pelosi and Schumer and AOC and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, all of them. They're the ones who are repeating that racist lie that if your skin color is black, more often than not, you are incapable of getting a photo ID, right? Everybody knows that. Well, Harry Ensign, how about that racial breakdown?
What's the racial breakdown on this, right? Because I think a lot of people make the argument that people of color, non-white Americans, have a harder time procuring a photo ID to vote. But even here, take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country.
That's right. In fact, I don't know if you heard that 76% of black Americans favor getting photo ID for voting. That's more than the Democrat Party writ large, regardless of racial makeup, right? Only 71% of Democrats want it, but 76% of black Americans want it. In other words, there's a lot more white Democrats who don't want photo ID for voting, more so than actual black Democrats. It's absolutely fabulous. So, given that, given those numbers, given the popularity, given the fact, as you just heard, that there's nothing controversial about this in any shape, manner, or form, it's actually incredibly popular across the board. Whether your party affiliation, your racial makeup, I'm sure that the sex and body parts of the people who are saying this are also consistent too. So who opposes it? Who would be against it? Well, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer was asked about the SAVE Act, which would, again, require citizenship proof when you go to register to vote and a photo ID when you go to vote. He was asked today, as they were trying to put together some sort of negotiation to get the part of the government that is not funded back funded. Senator Mike Lee of Utah said that he's going to bring this bill to the floor, and if Democrats want to filibuster it, he's going to entice Leader Thune to force them to actually do a good old-fashioned Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Jimmy Stewart before he was Charles Lindbergh flying across the Atlantic Ocean kind of filibuster where you just have to stand there and just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And Cory Booker's like, oh, please, please let this happen. This is what I want. It's what I live for. But Chuck Schumer was asked about this filibuster threat, and here's what he said about the SAVE Act.
What do you say to Mike Lee's argument that the Senate rules allow the majority to require the minority to stage a talking filibuster to stop the SAVE Act?
We've got to get this done, and we've got to get it done very quickly. The SAVE Act is an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0 across the country. We are going to do everything we can to stop it.
Okay, so once again, 83% of all Americans favor this. 95% of Republicans, 71% of Democrats, 76% of blacks, and 82% of all other racial identity groups all favor this thing. And Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats, just called it...
The SAVE Act is an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0.
It's an abomination, and it's Jim Crow 2.0. They're going to do everything they can to stop it. So why? Why do Democrats want to stop this? 877-381-3811. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
83% of the American people across the board favor the idea of photo ID. They also favor, obviously, having to prove you're a citizen. Think about that. It's in the Constitution that only U.S. citizens can vote in federal elections. And yet it's controversial then to say, okay, so when you register, you have to bring proof of citizenship. Well, you can't do that. I mean, think about the logic there. Only U.S. citizens can get a Social Security number. So imagine when going to apply for a Social Security number, you wouldn't have to show proof of citizenship. It's just ridiculous. Only U.S. citizens can enter the country legally without any sort of visa or special permission based on their country of origin. But, of course, the only way you can prove that is if you have a passport. Well, you can't force people to show a passport to enter the country. But apparently, the one thing in this country that only U.S. citizens can do, that you don't have to show any sort of proof or evidence that you are, in fact, a U.S. citizen, is to register to vote. You know, because votes don't matter. Votes aren't powerful. Votes don't control things in our lives. This will never make sense. And especially now that, and I said 83% of the American people, I just want to make clear here, it's very important. It is 83% based on a Pew Research poll, but I don't want you to think that, I don't want you to think that that poll speaks for everyone, because there's another poll here, Gallup. That one says 84% of the American people favor this. All right, so why did Democrats oppose it? Don't even want to vote. 877-381-3811. Your call's next.
This is the nation's town hall meeting, and you can join in at 877-381-3811.
It's Larry O'Connor filling in for the great one, Mark Levin, 877-381-3811. Oh, you just heard that phone number, didn't you? I like to repeat it because I'd love to have a conversation with you. I want your speculation on this. Why would Democrats, when 75% of Democrats registered in this country support the idea of photo ID, and by the not to mention having to prove that you're a U.S. citizen when you register to vote. It's such a no-brainer. It's so easy, and they keep lecturing us about, we need to come together over things. Let's figure out what we agree on. So why would Chuck Schumer oppose this? Well, we'll start on line one with Brian in Clarion County, Pennsylvania. Brian, thanks for calling in. My name's Larry.
Hey, Larry, thank you. My husband and I love when you host. You're funny, and you have a great radio voice.
Well, that's very kind of you. Give him my best.
I think the reason the Democrats hesitate on the voter ID bill is because they know that the American people support it and it would overwhelmingly pass. And, of course, it would shine a big light, obviously, on the fact that you have to be an American citizen in order to claim the rights that we enjoy under the U.S. Constitution. And that's against the platform of the Democratic Party right now. And I think it's so funny that the CNN guy seems to be amazed that Democrats support this bill also. Why? Well, we're all Americans. It's not about Republican or Democrats. Americans are American citizens. And it, like you said, it's a no-brainer. And it would just prove again that they're so out of touch with reality. Every American who loves the country wants propriety. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, we just want things done in a legal and orderly, organized, less chaotic way. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if having photo ID will change the outcome of elections. I really don't. I know there are a lot of people who say, millions of people vote illegally in places like California. Yeah, that may be true. It may be true, and maybe that's why they're opposing it. But Brian, my main goal here. Photo ID is a big part of this, and proving citizenship, cleaning up the voter rolls, and other protocols that need to be done in terms of how we handle our ballots and how we count our ballots on Election Day. Ultimately, the goal here is not to help one party or one candidate win. The goal is that the day after Election Day, win or lose, Americans can walk away at least, at the very bare minimum, at least knowing that it was done in a fair and legal way. And right now, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you don't feel that. If you lose, you think you got robbed. And that is so deteriorating to our republic.
And we have a promise to each other as Americans that we'll follow the laws of this country. We're a country of laws. And a promise to our neighbor is that we carry out with dignity and honesty how we live as Americans. And that includes properly being allowed to vote. And I don't understand why people don't understand this. It's
beautifully
a promise.
said, Brian. Well, people do understand it. It's this corrupt little class of leaders, these elites on one side of the political equation, that they understand it too, but they're still opposed to it. Brian, thank you. Very beautifully said, and I appreciate the call and the support and the sentiment. See, this is... It is so distressing sometimes when you actually wrap your brain around this and recognize what is probably at the root of their opposition of this basic, obvious, logical thing. And that is they either want us at each other's throats, or maybe Dan in Alpha, Iowa, line 4 there, Dan might have the other reason why they might be opposed to it. What do you say, Dan?
Larry, it's so they can't cheat.
Yeah, it's that simple.
It's that simple. It really is. I grew up in Chicago, where vote once, vote often. The dead vote all the time. And I moved to Iowa, where it is required to have a photo ID to vote. And you just said it at the end of talking to Brian, I think his name was. Mm-hmm. When I get done voting and they count the votes in Iowa, I know that everybody that voted here said, I'm an American citizen, and they showed it. So It makes it much easier to accept whatever result of the election was, whether it was for a Democrat or a Republican or, for the dog catcher. Yeah. Everybody votes, shows an ID. You know they're a citizen. You don't have to worry about it, and you accept the outcome. All these... I think I saw something on the last 2020, the last Trump election, last year.
24. Yeah.
That the only places the Democrats won were in no ID areas.
Yeah. Yeah. The only states that Kamala Harris carried were states that did not require photo ID for voting. It's remarkable when you wrap your brain around that. And you mentioned Iowa. Back when I worked for Andrew Breitbart, the month before he passed away, in January of 2012, he passed away on March 1st, 2012. In January, I was in Iowa. I was in your state, Dan. I covered the Iowa caucuses that year. I'd never been to a caucus before. It was amazing. Just talk about the pure exercise of the most wholesome kind of democracy you'll ever see. And in the precinct I was in, everyone gathered in a church, which I loved. The Democrats complain about this. They shouldn't be in a church. This is voting. It's like, please. Of course you go to a church. That's where the people assemble. And I kid you not, Dan, when they were tallying up the votes at this Iowa caucus precinct that I was at, the guy who was in charge was writing down the totals on the back of a McDonald's carryout bag. That's how wholesome it is. It's very organic. It's very nitty gritty. But guess what? Every single person who entered that caucus had to show ID before they participated.
Yep. And you ask people, because I've asked, people of all races, there's not just white people in Iowa. There's black people in Iowa. if they want photo ID, everyone I have ever asked is like, well, yeah, this way we know who's here.
Of course. It's so logical. And yet, Chuck Schumer, I got to play it. Dan, thank you for the call. Give Iowa my best. I know it's cold. Chuck Schumer, leader of the Democrats, asked about this SAVE Act just today. This is 2 hours ago he was asked.
And we've got to get it done very quickly. The SAVE Act is an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0 across the country. We are going to do everything we can to stop it.
There you go. An abomination, Jim Crow. By the way, last thing they called Jim Crow 2.0, you remember, I think it was Joe Biden called it Jim Crow on steroids. And then he said, this is the voting integrity bill that they passed into law in Georgia after the 2020 election, and they opposed it. And I believe Biden, you remember Joe Biden, his brain did not function. He had mashed potatoes for brains, that Joe Biden. I shouldn't speak in past tense. Still does. It's probably now sort of like a nice soft polenta, not even mashed potatoes. But at the time, he had mashed potatoes, and he was the leader of the free world and the commander-in-chief. That's amazing. And he said of the Voter Integrity Act that was passed down in Georgia, he called it, it makes Jim Crow look like Jim Sparrow. Oh, no, wait. Oh, I did it wrong. And see, no, hold on. I said it the right way because I have a functioning brain. I'm sorry. I have to channel mashed potatoes. What he said was it makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle, which is the opposite of the point I think he was trying to make. Because if it makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle, that means Jim Crow was way more powerful and bigger and far-reaching than this bill. What he meant to say was it makes Jim Crow look like Jim Sparrow. See, I messed it up because I actually think for a living, unlike Joe Biden, the aforementioned mashed potatoes for brains. But yeah, the last bill that they called Jim Crow 2.0 was the Voter Integrity Act that was passed in Georgia. And guess what and of course, when they raise the specter of Jim Crow, what they say is that it's racist and it's meant to suppress and disenfranchise the rights of black people. And guess what happened to the black voter turnout in Georgia in every single election since they passed what they called Jim Crow 2.0. Oh, you guessed it. You guessed it. They have increased the turnout of black voters in that state. I wonder how many people don't vote right now in America because they just assume it's rigged and it doesn't matter. If you know after Election Day, win or lose your candidate, let's say you're on the losing end of it, but at least you have the peace of mind to know, okay, well, I know that they checked for ID. I know that only citizens voted. So at least whatever dark cloud of suspicion I might have over our voting process in this country, I can at least eliminate those things. How healthy would that be? How great would that be as a nation for us to be able to reach that point? How in the hell did we get to the point we're at right now where this is even a question? John in Kansas City, Kansas, listening on the mighty KCMO. Hey, John, thanks for calling in. I'm Larry.
Hey, Larry. The Democrats that are in charge around America, these aren't your normal Democrats, like Kennedy Democrats. These people are pathological liberals. They're willing to lie, cheat, and steal to do anything they can to stay in power because that's all they're after is power. And they don't care how they get it. And the fact is in Kansas, they've been cheating since 1854 because they used voter intimidation and to try to get Kansas as a slave state. And as a matter of fact, my wife, when she went to go register to vote here, to vote for Trump, because she'd never voted before, we went in to register her to vote and found out she was a registered Democrat already. And so I
that's a neat trick.
I married a Democrat. Yeah, I said, I married a Democrat. So, oh my God.
Hold on. Is that grounds for an annulment in Kansas? That you might want to look into that.
Oh, it was. I took pause for a moment, but the fact is that she was a registered Democrat already. It was like, how does that happen? I'm like, why did? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know. And no, she didn't. She thought maybe when she got her driver's license, maybe perhaps then, but she was a registered Democrat. And I'm like, this is crazy. So here it is. Yeah. This still happens. Even today. And if it didn't happen to me, I'd like, that's crazy. But going back even with Democrats and Republicans, you know, back when Barack Obama had the supermajority in the House and Senate, you know what a state trifecta is? It's where the state governor, the House of Representatives, and the Senate are all either Democrat, or all Democrat or all Republican.
Yeah.
And they had a +8 trifecta when Obama had his supermajority in the House and the Senate in the U.S. Senate and Congress. Well, in 2018, President Trump had a +19 trifecta advantage. There was 26 states, Republican, governor, House, and Senate. And so why didn't he have a supermajority in the federal side, in the House and the Senate and Congress up there in Washington, D.C., with a +19 trifecta, state trifecta, when Barack Obama had it with only +8?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of that has to do with the districting and gerrymandering, too, and apportionment, which is a whole other thing, because apportionment counts non-citizens in states and gives congressmen or members seats to the House of Representatives to states like California that shouldn't have it if you only counted citizens. But, John, thank you for lending your voice to that, and good luck converting your wife. I'm praying for you. All right, in a moment, I want you to hear Mark Kelly, the reasonable Democrat, the moderate Democrat. He's a retired captain in the Navy. You know that, right? Of course you do, because if you don't know, he'll tell you every 30 seconds he's in front of you. Mark Kelly is now against the SAVE Act and photo ID, and his excuse, his reason, his explanation, it'll make your brain melt. I'll play that for you and more of your calls in a moment, 877-381-3811. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. We're talking about the SAVE Act, photo ID. Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona. He likes to pretend he's a moderate, reasonable guy. He's running for the Democrat nomination for president. He hasn't announced it yet, but you know he's running. And that means he has to be a radical. He has to check certain boxes. He has to not know there's a difference between boys and girls. He has to believe that boys can get pregnant. He has to believe that Biden was better on the border than Trump. And he has to be opposed to voter ID. And so he was asked about that. You know who I'm talking about, right? Mark Kelly. He looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, that guy. So he was asked about this. Listen to his excuse. It took him like a minute. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's just nonsensical. He has a malfunction. He wasn't expected to be asked such a basic and reasonable, logical question. And there is no logic behind Democrats opposing this, so here's his answer eventually.
Get harder for people to vote, and they want to continue.
Oh, wait, I started it too soon there. Here we go.
County election office there, so I'm not surprised. They want to make it harder for people to vote, and they want to continue, Donald Trump's, bullshit story about how his election was stolen in 2020.
And what do you make? So you're against proof of citizenship or identification to vote in elections?
Hey, no, that legislation, has, it is an effort to make it hard for Americans to vote.
Okay, so that's fascinating and insightful, isn't it? He opposes it because it makes it hard for Americans to vote. Let's analyze the word Americans real fast. From their perspective, an American is anyone who happens to be in the country, regardless of paperwork. That's why they always call them undocumented Americans or illegal aliens, right? So what he means is it makes it harder for people in the country to vote. And the answer to that charge is, well, yes, obviously, of course it does. It makes it much harder. In fact, the whole point is it's to make it impossible for certain people to vote. The people who are not legally allowed to vote. That's the whole point. Driver's license make it very hard for people who aren't supposed to be driving to drive. Photo ID makes it very hard for people who aren't supposed to be getting on an airplane to get on an airplane. Demanding photo ID makes it very hard for people who are fraudulently cashing checks to fraudulently cash checks. That's right, you moron. That's the whole point. Thank you for admitting it. Pat in Canton, Michigan. I went to Central Middle School in Plymouth, and I was supposed to go to Salem High School, but then I moved to California. How's it going in Canton, Pat?
Well,
It's cold and
It is
snowy,
cold, yeah. I
and
remember
our
that.
government has turned a little bit on the liberal side.
Yeah.
Used to be, you may remember Yak for forever, and he was a Republican in name only.
Yeah.
And now
Well, what do you think of the SAVE Act? Why we only got a minute here.
Oh, sorry. I think the SAVE Act is the proper thing to do, and I think the reason you find that the Democrats don't have any regard for the polls is the same reason why the Soviet Union never asked anybody living in the Soviet Union what they should do. They have a plan.
Very well said, my Wolverine friend. Thank you, Pat, in Canton, Michigan. All right, I've been beating up on the Democrats on this thing for a bit. Let's be bipartisan. There are some Republicans that deserve some real criticism over this photo ID thing. We'll get to them next. It's Larry O'Connor for Mark Levin.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I'm Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for Mark Levin. Thanks for being a part of the conversation tonight, coast to coast, on your favorite talk radio station or wherever you're listening, streaming, podcasting after the fact. It always freaks me out that you are listening hours after I'm talking on the podcast. It's the wonder of science. Thank God Einstein invented gravity or something like that. Thanks for listening. I'm the morning radio host on WMAL in Washington, D.C. My co-hosts, Patrice Onwuka and Julie Gunlock, both of Independent Women's Forum. In fact, we've got a great story about the gender mutilation surgeries that have been all the rage in this country that we've been fighting against for years. A big issue with Independent Women's Forums, the whole trans cult that they've been fighting against. Anyway, my co-hosts are Patrice Onwuka and Julie Gunlock. Julie, by the way, is recovering from a health emergency that she had about a month ago. She's missed the show, but our prayers are with her. And if you could pray with me for Julie Gunlock for her speedy recovery, and if you want more information, or maybe even if you want to, help her out, go to givesendgo.com/Julie Gunlock, and you'll get details there and help her out, get her back on her feet and ready to be behind the microphone with me again. That would be fantastic. I also do a daily live stream and podcast for Town Hall, where I'm the editor at townhall.com. You can catch that show. It's called Larry, strangely enough, and you can get that podcast at YouTube or Apple, Spotify, wherever you do that sort of thing. All right. Thanks for tuning in here. We're talking about the SAVE Act, and I've been beating up on the Democrats because the Democrats oppose this thing, even though the polls show that 84% of Americans support it, 95% are Republicans, 70% of Democrats. It's logical. It makes sense. It will give us peace of mind. And I'm sorry for hammering this story. If you think I'm beating a dead horse, I'm sorry. But some things require a lot of focus and attention. This is such a basic fundamental that American citizens prove that they are American citizens when they go to register to vote, so that we know only American citizens are voting. And I love the argument, why, you think there's a lot of non-citizens in the country who will break the law? Oh, I don't know, maybe, 20 million or so that just snuck in during Joe Biden's presidency. They broke the law coming in illegally. They're breaking the law staying here illegally. They're breaking the law if they're working here illegally. So why is it such a stretch of the imagination to think that they'll break the law voting here illegally? Oh, wow, we've got laws against that. Yeah, we've got laws against crossing the border illegally, too. They seem fine with that. Again, it's just so fundamental and logical that we require proof of citizenship to register to vote, and we require photo ID to vote. And I just gave you the numbers about how Americans support this. Chuck Schumer calls it an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0, and they're going to oppose it. And then that should really tick you off. You should be really angry about that. But you know what would make you even angrier? If you learned that the Republican leader in the Senate really didn't think this was a big deal and really wasn't a high priority. That's why I'm beating this dead horse. That's why I'm at the level where I want pitchforks and torches on this damn thing. Election integrity isn't that important. Ensuring that we have sound, fair, legal elections. Why should that concern us? John Thune today, just a couple hours ago, asked about if this is pressed on the floor and Democrats try to filibuster it, would he force them to actually stay on the floor and use floor time speaking through the night and really do a good old-fashioned filibuster? You know, call their bluff, stare them down, play a little chicken, play a little hardball. You know, do the same thing Democrats would do to us. Or, by the way, while we're in the realm of doing things Democrats would do to us, how about we just get rid of the filibuster? Because Lord knows they're going to do that when they get the majority back. Oh, and by the way, they'll get the majority back sooner than you think if we don't pass photo ID to vote. That's sort of the whole point. So John Thune's asked about all that, and John Thune seems like a really nice guy, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we want a nice guy in this job right now. Because here's his answer about whether it'll be a priority to move this bill that's been sitting on his desk for 300 freaking days that 84% of Americans support. He was asked if it would be a priority and whether he would use any tactics to make life difficult for Democrats if they filibustered. Here was the answer of your illustrious leader, the majority leader. And that, could someone remind him that he's the majority leader, not the minority leader? He actually has some power here. Listen to what he had to say. Go ahead, John Thune. Inspire us.
Well, you know, I guess, and I would just remind people that the coin in the realm in the Senate is floor time. There's a finite amount of it, and we have a lot of things we have to do. There's a housing bill that's awaiting action, hopefully a market structure bill, possibly permitting reform, farm bill, highway bill. You can go right down the list. Russia sanctions, there are a whole bunch of things that could be teed up for action on the floor of the Senate. And so you have to make some judgments, and the conference will have a conversation about that. I've committed to that we will talk about that idea and determine whether or not what the conference's views are about it and how they want to proceed. As I said, we will vote on the SAVE Act, but exercising or triggering a talking filibuster has ramifications, implications that I think everybody needs to be aware of. So we will have those discussions, but that's obviously ties the floor up for an indefinite amount of time with not only unlimited debate, but also unlimited amendments.
All right, rather we had the Senate.
Yeah. There you go. There's your leadership. Again, leader. That's actually in the title. Majority leader. He wanted this job. So lead. I was stirring. I'm inspired. I don't know about you. Did I mention pitchforks and torches? If you're a Republican and you have the opportunity to pass this thing and get it at Donald Trump's desk, that will once and for all force voters to prove that they're U.S. citizens and to prove that they are who they say they are. And you give a mamby-pamby housing regulation bill that needs to get put through, that's the priority? That you give an answer like that, I know it's not good for my job, but I'm kind of speechless on this one. 877-381-3811. Maybe you'd like to let Mr. Thune, or I'm sure he might be listening to NPR right now. How about you let Mr. Thune's, Leader Thune's staff know how you feel about this? Because I guarantee you they've got ears on. What do you think? 877-381-3811. All right, let's go to William, Dublin, Georgia. William, you're next up here on the Mark Levin Show. I'm Larry.
Hey, Larry, how you doing?
Good. I'm a little annoyed, I'll be honest with you. But how are you doing?
Well, more than a little annoyed. And by the way, I'm subscribed to your YouTube channel, and I listen to it frequently.
Oh, thank you.
But living in Georgia, the 2020 election, I know that something nefarious went on, and I'm glad that the FBI is starting to do something because of Fulton County. And I have, in fact, worked on a template of the 159 counties of Georgia by population and divided them up to where you could have like an electoral college type of election in Georgia, so that we that live in the outskirts of Fulton County, excuse me, can at least have a voice. So there is a way to do it. You just need to let the outside counties from the big cities do what they need to do.
When you're talking about restructuring the way Georgia elects its electoral college voters by making a sort of mini electoral college model within the state?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess theoretically you could do that. But the state legislatures, and William, thank you for the call. The bottom line is people do feel like their votes are being canceled out. They feel like the fraud that exists, whether it's whatever shenanigans happened in Fulton County, or whether it's just somebody who isn't supposed to be voting, who decides to go ahead and vote anyway, people feel like their vote doesn't count. And do you know why people feel that way? Because it's true. Every fraudulent vote that is counted in an American election negates a legal vote. That's just basic logic. And people are frustrated. And I can just tell you, brother, the state legislatures of every state can determine how their electoral college members are determined and sent to the electoral college. It's up to you. If you guys want to do something like that, you certainly could. How about line 4, Alan in Portland, Maine? Hello, Alan. You're next up on the Mark Levin Show.
Well, hello, Larry, and thank you for having me on, and I'm praying for Julie.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
And,
all right, what's on your mind?
I'm totally in favor of this act and voter ID, and the problem is the beautiful red state of Maine, illegals can pitch a driver's license. And,
of course. Yeah, but now, and there are a lot of states that do that. Is there an identifying marker on the driver's license for the people who are in the country illegally?
See, there isn't, and that's a problem, at least in the state of Maine.
Wow. Well, and that's another reason why we should have proof of citizenship upon registration.
Exactly. So you show your photo ID and show proof of citizenship. I like that.
Yeah. All right, Alan, thank you. Appreciate your contribution. Let's go to, how about Mark in Pittsfield, Maine? A lot of people in Maine calling in today. Are the Democrats really going to nominate that guy with a Nazi tattoo, Mark?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope not. But I want to thank you for taking my call. And I'm calling kind of like for myself. I'm 62. My buddy listens to you, Wyatt. He just had a baby, and he's listening to. He's 24. He's the guy who thinks his vote doesn't count, and I know why. It makes perfect sense. And to answer your primary question as to why Chuck Schumer is taking the bullhorns and acting like he speaks for the Democratic Party when 170 or 160 people out of 200 are voting for the SAFE Act. And he's speaking purely for the hatred of Donald Trump. No matter what Donald Trump does, cancer pill for your mom, he's going to refuse it because it came from him.
Yeah.
And I really think this is their last ditch. This is their last ditch attempt, because if the SAFE Act doesn't pass, then they're going to hope that the illegal immigration and the deportation fails and all these people can vote. If that fails, but the SAFE Act passes, then they're still screwed because, the people who they wanted to vote for them can't vote for them.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark, that's certainly how they're acting. They're so desperate on this thing. And by the way, I agree. Anything that Trump does, they oppose. But they've been opposed to this well before Trump. One could argue that this was all part of their plan in the states where they have increased their power. They have also, at the same time, seen an increase in illegal immigrants, an increase in benefits that those states give to illegal immigrants that acts as a magnet to bring them into those states. And then at the same time, they have whittled away and deteriorated any kind of citizenship requirements or identification requirements for voting. So, again, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but when you look at those facts and you put them together, it sure looks like this was a plan. And they've been able to retain their power. But Mark, and thank you for the call from Pittsfield, Maine, Mark makes a very good point. When you wonder why Democrats oppose this, all you have to do is listen to what they say, watch their actions, watch how they vote, observe their rhetoric, and one can only reach the conclusion that they are desperate to keep a system in place that would make it very, very, very easy for people to cheat in a federal election. They seem hell-bent on opposing any basic, fundamental, logical safeguard to ensure that there's just the modicum of voter integrity. I'm not saying they're cheating. I'm not saying they're rigging elections. I'm saying they oppose things and laws that would prevent elections from being rigged. Take it for what it is. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
The second I called Dennis. See what happens? All right, how about Jade? Oh, no, he's there. All right, Dennis, Long Island, listening on Sirius XM. Satellite, it bounces off of the stars. Thanks for calling it. What's on your mind on this voter ID question?
Larry, thank you for taking my phone call. I just got to tell you, I'm a New Yorker, and I can't remember the one time that I've ever voted for a president or a senator that I got that represented my state, meaning that no matter what, it's always blue. Yeah. And, the election integrity is like, it makes common sense to make sure that you're a citizen, that you can vote in these things.
It frustrates me that we even have to debate this.
You believe that? It's like, it's insane. And then for them to come out and, a lot like humor, this guy doesn't realize the internet's forever. And the fact is, you have him. He wants.
Yeah, but what about Thune, Dennis? Thune is sitting there, mamby-pamby. Wow, we got a housing regulation bill, and we gotta make sure that we get Russian sanctions, and if you don't secure the elections, none of the rest matters. All right, coming up, I have questions for whatever Democrat wants to be the nominee. I have 3 questions for them. Listen up.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
This is the home of America's founding. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. And for everyone on hold right now on this voter ID thing, SAVE Act stuff, I am going to change the subject. I'm sorry. We did an hour and a half on this. And not that it's not important. I mean, I don't know anyone else who did an hour and a half on this on national radio. It's absolutely outrageous, and it needs to continue to be pressed. I'm here in the nation's capital, and I saw a lot of you people on social media saying, should we flood the Republicans in the Senate's voicemails? John Thune's voicemail. Should you? Yeah, you should. Yeah. Let them know it's kind of important because they don't get it. I do want to move on. There's a couple of other things in the news that I want to talk about. If you listen to my radio show that I do in D.C. every day from 5 to 9 in the morning, I'm sure you have a great morning show where you live, but you should check out our morning show now and again, 5 to 9 Eastern, or my daily noon live stream that I do for Town Hall, where I'm the editor. I try to be positive. I try to be upbeat. I try to find the upside of anything. I'm not one of those guys, this is a doomsday end of the Republic broadcast. I'm glad you're listening. I'm not that guy. I'm not. Maybe I should be. Maybe I'm ready to be a prepper. Maybe I should be digging the bunker in the backyard and arming up and getting all the canned food ready, and because the whole thing's going to be just crashing down. I've got 4 kids. I just found out I've got my very first grandchild is on the way, and I want to be as hopeful and positive, realistically. Though, of course, I'm not Pollyanna, I'm not a cheerleader, I'm not naive, but I like to instill in my kids and in a lot of the younger people. I live in Annapolis with my wife. We're near the Naval Academy. We're sponsor parents. We have these young men and women who are on the path to being Navy and Marine Corps officers, junior officers, and I want to harness their hope and optimism and their energy about this country and what they're willing to do for our country. I want to commingle with that and lift it up to a higher plane for them and for myself, frankly. And I want to spread that kind of hope and optimism and positive energy. That's what you got to do in this country, especially if you're a patriotic, liberty-loving, America First conservative. That's how we attract people to our ideas. It's how we attract people to the momentum behind the progress that we are already seeing right now. We can't wallow in the noise. We can't wallow in the anger. We can't wallow in the negativity all the time. That's what they do. My longtime hero, Dennis Prager, used to call the left's perspective is a proctologist's view of America. If you know what a proctologist does, you know what his view is. And that's how they view our country. We don't do that. We take seriously the very real threats that our society faces, that our nation faces, that our Constitution faces, that Western civilization faces. Because let's face it, the Marxists, they don't want to just control the economy. They want to control our culture. They want to upend Western civilization and basic societal norms that we have learned through Christendom and through Judeo-Christian understanding of where we are on this planet and why we are on this planet and what our obligations are to each other and to our Lord. They want to tear all that down. I get it, okay? But we need to have a sober perspective on what they're doing and then attract people through the absolute magnificence of our love for what we believe in. Long way of saying I'm a glass half full kind of guy. Heck, I'm not even a glass half full kind of guy. I'm a guy who just wants us to get the right size glass so it always looks full, no matter how much liquid you've got. And so when I see a story of hope, when I see a story, then make us all clench our fist and thrust it in the air like we're watching a Rocky movie and say, yeah, we won one. Well, I want to share it with you. I remember a couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to sit behind this microphone for Mark Levin, and we talked quite a bit about the existential threat to our children posed by the medical profession, by the educators in our public schools mostly, and the elite class who have decided that they can't tell the difference between boys and girls. From the elite class who think that a man can get pregnant, and that if you don't use nonsensical pronouns that twist and distort the English language, that you're in some way a bigot. I remember talking to you about how serious this issue is for parents. Parents who are told by medical professionals and by professional educators that if they don't give permission for their minor child to be pharmaceutically sterilized with hormone drugs, and in some cases physically mutilated with perfectly healthy organs lopped off of their bodies and tossed into a trash can for the sake of this bizarre transgender cult that had consumed our culture and our elite and our ruling class just a handful of years ago. I remember talking about that with you. I remember explaining to you how critically important this is, and I remember all the calls talking about the outrageous things that are going on in your school system, in your local school district, where the fight was engaged, and we fought back. We held the line. We withstood the claims that we were bigoted, that we were homophobic, that we were anti-science, that we were allowing our children to be harmed. We fought back against the notion those poor children, those poor parents of those poor children, who were convinced to go through those extreme measures by medical professionals with the emotional blackmail that was laid in front of them, saying, if you don't do this, if you don't chemically castrate your child through pharmaceuticals and hormones, cross-sex hormones that were not designed for your little child's body, if you don't go through with this barbaric plastic surgery that would lop off these beautiful, perfect, healthy human organs and toss them into the trash can to accommodate this radical ideology, if you don't do that, your child will kill themselves, and it will be your fault, Mom and Dad. We fought back against all of that. All of it. And I've got two stories for you. I don't know if you saw it. Over the weekend, a jury in New York awarded a young woman, a detransitioner, they're called. That's somebody who was talked into these barbaric procedures, and then when they were no longer teenagers and dealing with whatever they were dealing with as teenagers, that led them to the point where they thought it would be wise to remove their breasts or remove other parts of their body. When she got a little bit older and she realized that it was wrong, she realized the regret, she realized that it was an awful thing to do, well, she then turned and sued the doctor and the psychologist who she believes manipulated her and convinced her to have that procedure, a double mastectomy. A jury awarded this young woman $2 million over the weekend. This is enormous. This is a game changer. This is where it ends. Because for the last 10, 15 years, a whole lot of people made a whole lot of money. The insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the hospitals, the surgeons, the counselors, a whole lot of money. A cynic would look at all the money that they were made and think that perhaps that was the motivating factor here. And now, as soon as their ideology, their radical ideology, and their encouragement to have these barbaric procedures done ends up costing them money, well, game over. We'll see where their principles and their values and their virtue go when it starts costing them money instead of making them rich. And then there's this story today. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons has now recommended against gender transition surgeries for youths, becoming the first major medical association in the U.S. to narrow its guidance on pediatric gender care. Which, by the way, is a remarkable headline in and of itself, because when we and then the courageous Matt Walsh and the whole team there, my friends and colleagues at Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, even Andrew Klavan, when they raised this issue to such a high profile, when people like myself and my colleagues at WMAL, I mentioned my colleagues and co-hosts, Patrice Onwuka and Julie Gunlock, who, along with the president of Independent Women's Forum, Carrie Lucas, made this issue number one, because unlike the left-wing, radical, liberal, Marxist, feminist groups that you hear about all the time, whose sole focus and their main priority in representing women is to ensure that women can kill babies before they're born, but they don't really think beyond that. Unlike those groups, independent women, Independent Women's Forum, Independent Women's Vote, Independent Women's Network, the whole umbrella there, they made this a priority because they recognized that this was changing the very definition of what it is to be a woman, if we're even allowed to have that definition at this point. And they have now turned the tide on this. The winds are racking up. But whenever we would raise this issue and say children should not be convinced to do this, puberty blockers are not temporary. It is irreversible. You are distorting and changing a child's life before and during puberty, and they can never have those years back. Game over. It is barbaric to remove a young girl's breasts at the age of 16 when a 16-year-old isn't even sure what outfit they should wear on any given day or how they should have their hair cut, let alone have a radical, irreversible surgery done on their body. We wouldn't allow them to get tattoos because it's permanent, but we're encouraging these procedures. Whenever we would raise this issue about children, what were we told? Time and time again, what were we told? Oh, nobody's doing this to children. Oh, that's a right-wing conspiracy theory. Stop. No, it's not happening to children. We would show them the videos that the courageous and brilliant internet journalist at Libs of TikTok uncovered from I believe, Boston pediatric hospital that showed the surgeons at a Boston pediatric hospital talking about the procedure they did to children at the pediatric hospital. And they would delete the videos, wipe them from the internet, and say, those don't exist. We don't do these to children. And after years and years and years of the gaslighting and the denials and the claims of right-wing conspiracy, we now have the American Society of Plastic Surgeons recommending against gender transition surgeries for youths. becoming the first major medical association in the U.S. to narrow its guidance on pediatric gender care. Well, I thought there was no pediatric gender care. You need to embrace this and celebrate this. You need to post this on your social media, on your Facebook, wherever you communicate to the world. We are winning. Common sense is winning. Sanity is winning. Rational thinking is winning. Our children are winning. And the demons who supported this and continue to support it, they are losing and they're getting desperate. This is great news, and we need to celebrate it. You need to celebrate it. But it also brings me to 3 questions that I have. I have 3 questions for every Democrat who wants to be president in 2028, and they need to answer these questions before they should get anybody's consideration for a vote. And the funny thing about these 3 questions is that depending on how they answer it, well, let me put it this way. They have to answer it one way to get the nomination from the Democrats, but the answer they give to get the nomination for the Democrats will kill their chances in the general election. My 3 questions for the Democrat nominee for president, it involves this transgender issue, or at least one of those questions does. And I'll share them with you in a moment. 877-381-3811. What are your questions for a Democrat nominee for president? Give us a call. It's the Mark Levin Show. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
The transgender zealots who have been preying on the children of America for God knows what reasons. Generously, it's for their own filthy, satanic wages to make them wealthy. At worst, it's something much darker than that. They are in full retreat, as now we've learned that the plastic surgeons of America are recommending to stop doing these procedures on children. And a jury just awarded a $2 million settlement to a detransitioner who sued the doctors involved in this. Wait till the insurance companies have to start paying out. This is huge, and you should celebrate it, and you should be happy. And it turns the political world on its ear now, because one party still is in support of all of these things and refuses to condemn them. The best they'll do is say, yeah, it's probably unfair to let men compete in women's sports. They won't do anything about it. They'll just say it's unfair. They'll acknowledge it's unfair, but then not do anything about it. That's the closest they'll come. So that brings me to my 3 questions for the Democrat nominee for president. And I thought I'd flip this into your opinions as well. I'd love to hear from you about this trans story and how we're winning. We are winning, and we should celebrate it and be happy about it and stop being so negative and cynical all the time. This is great news. But then I'd also love to hear if you can, form the important issues of our time into a question for the nominee. If you could ask Gavin Newsom these questions, or Kamala Harris, or Mark Kelly, or whoever is going to be the nominee, what would you have them be? Here are my questions. Number 1, will you reverse Donald Trump's border policies and return us to the Biden era on our southern border? Simple question. But the way they answer it could jeopardize their chances to get the nomination. Question number 2, will you tear down the brand new ballroom at the White House and reconstruct the East Wing? Again, how they answer it will be very interesting. And then finally, this is the big one. This will stump them all. Their brains will explode because they can only provide one answer to get the nomination from the Democrats. But that answer will kill them in the general election. Here's my question. Can a man get pregnant? If they can't answer those questions to your satisfaction, they don't deserve a vote.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name's Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for Mark Levin. Mark Levin is out today. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. I'm doing my best, okay? But no, I'm not Mark Levin. No one is. That's why they call him the Great One. I am on Mark Levin's radio station in Washington, D.C. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's the nation's capital. Kind of an important place when it comes to news and political talk. I'm the morning show host. The show's called O'Connor and Company. I'm Larry O'Connor. I'm the O'Connor part of that. The company are my co-hosts, Julie Gunlock and Patrice Onwuka of Independent Women's Forum. That's why I'm so jazzed up about this great news that we've gotten with a rollback of transgender policies, because Patrice and Julie and the president of Independent Women's Forum, Carrie Lucas, they've been so focused on this issue and trying to change the conversation in this country to protect women, to protect girls and children on this very important topic. So I love doing that show. I also do a noon live stream show for Town Hall. Town Hall, you know that website. I'm the editor of Town Hall, and I do that show every day. You can get both of them on podcast, where you like to get your podcasts, and I would love your support there if you don't mind doing that. I shared this information in the last half hour about how the U.S. plastic surgeons have now decided that they will no longer allow for gender transition. They call them gender-affirming surgeries, which is so Orwellian. It is actually the opposite of affirming someone's gender. It is. It changes their gender. I mean, it doesn't really change your gender. You can't change your gender. Sorry, not happening. But you can go through a cosmetic process to hack yourself up and make you look different. I mean, right? Remember the woman who got herself all chopped to pieces so she could look like a Barbie doll? Hey, you got enough money and you're bored enough with your life, you can do stuff like that. That doesn't make her a Barbie doll. I guess it makes her, if you squint hard enough, it makes her look like a Barbie doll. And in this case, if you squint hard enough, you might mistake some of these individuals for the opposite sex than which they were born. But that's not really the point, is it? Especially when it comes to children. So two huge, positive, uplifting wins for us, for common sense, for Western civilization, for children, for parents, for common sense. You've got the plastic surgeons saying, no more, we're not going to do this anymore on kids. First time in America we've had one of these organizations. Where are the rest of them, by the way? Where's the American Pediatrics? Where's the American Medical Association? Where's the American Psychological Association? You're repugnant. You're embarrassing. You've been co-opted. You've been taken over. You've been distorted and destroyed by the cultural Marxists and the political left and the human rights campaign. The other great win is a jury. Honestly, all those groups that I just mentioned and how they've been co-opted, none of it will matter when no one will be able to do these procedures and get them done because a doctor, a surgeon, a hospital, and a health insurance company refuse to subsidize it and do it because they won't get paid. Because a jury awarded $2 million to a detransitioner who sued her surgeon and her psychiatrist for talking her into this when she was 16 years old. And watch the dominoes fall. Watch the house of cards collapse. So it brought to mind my three questions for the Democrat nominee for president, and understand that how they answer these questions will determine whether they can win the nomination, considering the money, the power, and the votes in the base of the Democrat Party right now. And if they answer the questions appropriately to win that nomination, they will have already been excluded from winning the general election from most normal voters. The three questions are, will you reverse Trump's policy on the border and return us to the Biden policy? Will you tear down the White House ballroom and restore the East Wing? Remember that controversy? And the third is very simple. Can a man get pregnant? And I know you're laughing at me. You're talking back to radio because you don't live in D.C., you don't live in New York. You don't know how insidious that last question is. You're saying, come on, Larry. No adult with a functioning brain in American politics is going to say that a man can get pregnant. Really? 2 weeks ago, United States Senate, Josh Hawley of Missouri, speaking to an OBGYN. This is a doctor whose specialty is girl parts. Her name is Dr. Verma. She was asked that very question, can a man get pregnant?
With that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
Can men get pregnant?
I take care of many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women. That
Can men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
Let me just remind you what you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. So can men get pregnant? You're a doctor, I think.
Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
No, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence, and I'm asking you. You know, the United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert, and you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating
This is
male
extraordinary.
female with
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
what you were talking about is biological.
You're not going to answer my question. it sounds like.
Biological male.
All right, so you get the picture. By the way, she is fully qualified to be an elected official for the Democrats. She's fully qualified to get the nomination for president of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, your nominee, Dr. Verma. But any normal American, any normal sentient being witnessing that recognizes how extraordinarily insane it is. I don't know what's more disconcerting, a doctor, an OBGYN, a doctor that specializes in women's reproduction, incapable of answering that question. Or is it more disconcerting to know that that's a doctor who uses vocal fry and up-talking to such a level that she could very well be a Kardashian? You have to have an advanced degree from an American liberal arts university to not be able to answer that question or to actually say that, well, you're not recognizing the complexity of it. No, there's nothing complex. It's been pretty basic and simple. Since before we could use tools as a human race, we figured this out. Before we had a written language, we figured this out. This predates the Mesopotamians. But no, it's very complex. It's super duper complex. You know what? Here's why Republicans have an advantage in this election. Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, on the very day that this extraordinary exchange happened in the Senate with Josh Hawley, was asked for a reaction at her press briefing. One of the reporters there, I'm sure it was one of the reporters who stand on the sides there, you know, the common sense one with brains, not the ones with journalism degrees and big cable news contracts that sit in those cushy seats. So she asked on the side there, her name's, she's with the Daily Signal. Of course she is, the mighty Daily Signal at Heritage Foundation. Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell asked, do you have a reaction to this Democrat witness unable to answer Senator Hawley's question about whether a man can get pregnant? This right here, Caroline Levitt speaking on behalf of the White House, but speaking on behalf of any normal American, this is why Republicans are going to have an advantage in this election. Here's her answer. It's not complex.
To your second question, I mean, anyone in their right mind with common sense who's speaking honestly and candidly will say that men cannot get pregnant. And I think I can attest to that myself. So thank you.
There you go. There you go. So that's where we are right now. And again, we're winning on this issue. The tide has completely changed because of your efforts, because of your diligence, because of your courage, because it wasn't that long ago when having this conversation out in the open, in public, listen, we're allowed to say whatever we want on talk radio, thank God. But I'm talking about like in your workplace, in the sidelines of your kid's soccer game, you know, on your Facebook page. If you dared to say that men can't get pregnant and that maybe children should be protected from these procedures, you would be canceled. You could get fired. You were called a bigot. You were censored. You were removed from polite society. That wasn't that long ago. We have changed this. We have turned this around. We are winning. Stop with the blackpilling. This is our country again. And you need to celebrate these wins. So it brings me to my three questions. You've heard my three questions. My favorite one is the last one. Can a man get pregnant? That's what every Democrat should be able to answer. I wonder if you've got a reaction to this great news, number one. But also, secondly, have you got a question, a real stumper, something that, depending on how that politician answers the question, well, it tells you everything you need to know. And it sort of boxes them into a corner where they can't possibly get themselves out. Those are my favorite kind of questions. 877-381-3811. How about Sandra in Gutenberg, New Jersey? Sandra on line 2. Sandra, thanks for calling. It's the Mark Levin Show, and my name's Larry.
Oh, I know, Larry. I was listening to you, and I was so happy you brought up the discussion about the psychiatrist and the surgeon wanting to encourage a young woman to remove her breasts. So I read that same article, and I was disappointed not to hear it discussed anywhere else on the radio. So bravo to you.
Thank you.
I wanted to tell you something. You're welcome. My husband did plastic surgery all his life. And one day I remember asking him, I said, hey, Michael. Yeah. I said, Michael, do you ever get people that come in that want to, like, change their sex? And he says, I do. And you know what he says, Larry? He tells the parent, or he tells the person, to tell you the truth, I haven't done very many of those. So if you want to have it done, I suggest you go to someone who does many of them. In other words, if you want to go for a facelift, you're not going to go to someone who did one or two. You're going to want to go to someone who did a lot of them.
Right.
So
go to someone who's got some experience in doing those kind of barbaric procedures.
And this way, he didn't offend anyone.
Sure.
He didn't, and that's how he handled it. And this happened way back before this became even fashionable. So this has been going on a long time. So I'm happy that that person, those two, got caught or whatever. But I said to myself, that's just one isolated incident. But
Yeah.
correct. But I guess you said more people are going to start waking up too. So I was happy about that.
Yeah,
So,
a lot more people, and tragically, a lot of children. That the focus really, really has been on children, which is, just honestly demonic. It's the only word I can come up with. that people look at children and think of children and encourage children to do these things, Sandra.
Larry, you said something so true. A young girl, I remember my daughter once wanted to have, streaks put in her hair. She went, she gets it done. She came home crying her eyes out. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? Could you imagine, like what you said?
Yeah.
They can't even handle a haircut, let alone doing something like this. So you made some great points on
Thanks,
it.
Sandra.
And
I appreciate it, darling.
that,
I appreciate the call. Tell the Garden State we said hi. Yeah, my daughter, I got 2 daughters. One of them always wanted to get a tattoo, and she's got 1 or 2. The next daughter down, she wanted to get a tattoo all through high school. She said, well, when I'm 18, I'm getting a tattoo. Okay, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Oh, when I'm 18, I'm getting a tattoo. She went to the Naval Academy, so she joined the Navy the summer before she turned 18. She turned 18 in August, but plebe summer there at the Naval Academy happened. So she went to the Naval Academy. She couldn't get a tattoo yet during plebe summer, but she turned 18 in August, and then she, could have gotten a tattoo that whole first year of college at the Naval Academy. And she says, yeah, I'll wait till I'm 19. And then she's in the Navy, for God's sake. Everybody in the Navy gets a tattoo, right? Makes sense. She's going to get maybe the Navy Jack with the snake, don't tread on me, that kind of thing. And then finally she said, yeah, well, maybe next year. All right, well, maybe when I'm 21. She is now 24 years old. She is married. She's expecting a baby, not 1 tattoo on her body. And she's very happy that she didn't do that. More of your calls here, 877-381-3811. Your reaction to our victories right now in the trans debate, and your questions for the Democrats. It's Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
By the way, these things don't happen in a vacuum. Larry O'Connor here in for Mark Levin. This didn't just happen. And it's great, but we've fought. We've exposed the truth. We've shined a light on this. But also, Trump made this part of his election in 2024. And let's not forget, on the day of his inauguration, January 20th, 2025, executive order defending women from gender ideology extremism, restoring biological truth to the federal government. 1 week later, on the 28th, protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. And then, of course, the Supreme Court ruling, the 6-3 decision, banning gender-affirming medical care in Tennessee, allowing the state of Tennessee to do that. State-level legislation and bans all through the last year and a half. The protection of our military from these policies. This all created the climate for these victories to continue and continue and continue. You should celebrate this. You stood up to it against all odds. You withstood the name-calling, the demonization, the ostracization of you. You stood up to all of it and you won. And now I want to hear from you, and I also want to hear what you have to say to Democrats about it.
Mark Levin, the George S. Patton Talk Radio. Call him at 877-381-3811. That's 877-381-3811.
I'm Larry O'Connor. I'm in for the great one, Mark Levin, and we're taking your calls. You just heard the number. What, you weren't listening? That guy's got the greatest voice in the world. All right, 877-381-3811. I want to hear from you. Do a little bit of a victory lap here and bring some perspective to this outrageous policy. The Democrats came this close to cramming down your throats forever. If we hadn't held the line, if we hadn't held that line and pushed back hard, and now we've got the momentum on this transgender policy. The best you're going to get is Gavin Newsom. Actually, I got to be honest, Rahm Emanuel, who will never get the nomination for the Democrats. But Rahm Emanuel was asked in a podcast about this. Can men get pregnant? He said, no, men can't get pregnant. He's the only one. Wes Moore, Pete Buttigieg, Josh Shapiro. No chance they would ever answer that question. That's the best they can do. The best you're going to get from Gavin Newsom is when he was on with the late, great Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk raised the issue, and he goes, well, yeah, obviously it's not fair for these transgender women to compete in sports against biological women. Do you know that on the left, because of the totalitarian thought police and speech police from Human Rights Campaign and other LGBTQI++++, et cetera, LMNOP, EIEIO groups, you're not even allowed to use the term biological man and biological woman. That's considered oppressive. But Gavin Newsom says, yeah, of course it's not fair. It's ridiculous, but I have compassion, and I really, it's so few people that this actually affects, so why should we bother? That's the best you'll get. The best you'll get is the bare minimum, the lowest of low-hanging fruit. I mean, this fruit is hanging so low, it's touching the ground. It's overripe. It's almost a rotten apple. That you have to be forced, twist my arm to get to the point where I recognize that a biological boy playing in women's volleyball is unfair and, oh, by the way, dangerous. Or at a track meet. But fine, okay, you admit that. What about that biological boy getting undressed in a locker room in front of my 15-year-old daughter who's never seen a naked male genitalia in her life, and now she's going to be exposed to it against her will without her consent? How about that, Gavin? Can you get to the point where you recognize that that's not fair? And when the girl and her parents complain, they're sent to therapy. They need some sort of counseling and treatment to get over their bigotry, because the girl doesn't want to be exposed to naked male genitalia against her consent. This is the party of women. Because, apparently the best woman for a job has male genitalia. And they will never get to the point where they even concede the fact that a man can't get pregnant, let alone drawing the line on these medical procedures on children. Why is there such an obsession for children on this issue? Well, you'll have to answer that on your own. 877-381-3811. Trey in Duncanville, Texas, line 1 there, listening on the mighty what a great radio station is WBAP. Hey, Trey, thanks for calling in. I'm Larry.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it immensely, Mr. Larry. I'm never going to vote Democrat. I voted for Ronald Reagan back in 1980, and I voted for Donald J. Trump in 2016, 2020, and 2024.
Those are some good bookends there. The Gipper on one side and the Trumpster on the other.
Okay, and I do have two questions for Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay, since you're talking about this transitional LBGTQ1, 2, 3 ABC thing. Okay, here's another question. Can a woman sire children like a bull can sire calves, a stallion can sire foals, a boar can sire piglets, a ram can sire lambs? That's my first question.
Yeah,
and then my second question.
Well, there has never been a more Texas sentence spoken on the Mark Levin program, I think, ever. That you've got to win an award. There's nothing more Texan than that. Can a woman,
thank you, sir,
sire like a bull? All right. What's your other question?
Yes, and this concerns economics. So I want to know, this is for all Democrats in the House, Senate, and ones running for president. Do they want to go back to Kamala's idea of fixing the economy by taxing people 20%, let me repeat, 20% on unrealized capital gains, like on your house, your stock?
Yes.
So I would like to have them answer those two questions.
That's a great question. Yeah, in fact, and listen, great question for the Democrat, because whoever's vying for the nomination, they supported Kamala Harris. They wanted her to win. Say, well, would you adopt her policies? Here's one of them. By the way, Trey, I got an even better question for all of them. Why aren't you all just stepping aside and letting Kamala Harris be the nominee again? I mean, doesn't she deserve a chance? She only had 107 days after all. Give her a chance. She was a transcendent political figure.
Well, that's fine with me.
That's fine with me, too. All right, Trey, you tell Duncanville and WBAP we said hi. Let's get to Susan now, line 2 in Corning, New York. Hello, Susan. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, tonight I'm so thrilled because it's Larry in the morning for me on WMAL and then Levin at night. So I'm getting double Larry today.
Susan, that's a whole lot of Larry. That's more Larry than my wife gets. So let's just keep this between us.
Well, I like the chicks that are on with you, too, and I'm thinking about Julie. I definitely listen to your show. I'm addicted to your morning thing because I'm not a morning person, but I know your whole vibe has a way to, get me out of my malaise. But what I wanted to say, besides all the horrible mutilation that these doctors and psychologists have told the parents, well, your kid might, commit suicide if you don't let him do this, which is just the opposite, because the transgender kids, like the one who shot up those beautiful children in Minneapolis, the guy, the girl that turned into a guy, in his manifesto, he said how much he regretted it and how he hated it and how he wished he never would have smoked pot in his early years because it made him crazy. But what I really wanted to say was not only these surgeries, surgery for anything, it has risks. So to put these kids under that kind of mutilation, but what about the drugs? Now, when now I have to so when the girls want to become boys, they have been giving this drug, Lupron, which is a testosterone suppressing drug, which is indicated for men who are undergoing prostate cancer because they believe that when you reduce the testosterone, you reduce the cancer. So how are they giving a Lupron to an adolescent boy? How is that indicated? That, to me, should be a huge new additional liability for these doctors. I'm not a doctor, but I can see how crazy. Now, they wouldn't give hydroxychloroquine for a very safe drug for COVID, even though India used it and had much less hospitalizations than we did, because it's for malaria. So our geniuses said, "Oh no, you can't use it."
Right, Susan, you beat me to it. I was going to use that. It's called off-label prescribing or that sort of thing, or there's another term for it. But what it is these drugs have been tested and approved by the FDA for one thing, and then doctors, are free to use it since it's already been tested to be safe for perhaps an effective use for another thing. Now, in COVID, they wouldn't let, I believe it was ivermectin, they would not let doctors use ivermectin because it had only been tested and prescribed for malaria, even though studies suggested it was perfectly fine and safe to use and even effective against COVID. But here, you're right, they are allowing doctors to use these drugs that are meant for men who have prostate cancer or women who have other, issues. They are allowing them to prescribe them for children, prepubescent and pubescent children, to block their body's natural puberty and adolescent process. And it's celebrated, Susan. It's been celebrated, but we're on the right side of it. God bless you. Thank you for calling in tonight, and thank you for the very, very kind words. That's amazing. Great point. Mark Levin's audience has such smart listeners. Tony in Montreal, Canada. That's line 5. We got 2 Tonys, so let's make sure we get the Canuck here. Sorry, the Hab, let's call him, because Tony likes the Montreal Canadiens, I'm sure. Someday you'll win a Stanley Cup again, Tony. Thank you for calling in. What do you say on this issue?
You know your Montreal history. I don't mind Canuck. Canuck is okay, but Habs fan is correct also.
Oh, yes, listen, I know the Habs. Well, I'm from Detroit. We were the Red Wings and the Habs. Were always great games.
One of my best friends' second cousin was Alex Del Vecchio, so he keeps reminding me how great he was back in the day.
There you go.
So You know about Alex Del Vecchio.
Sure.
And that's a Montreal family, by the way, too, right? So I just want to say something that's quite like the fellow from down in Texas. I have the same opinion. I've never seen a stallion, do anything but be interested in a mare. And Jane Goodall spent her entire life in Africa, and never at one time said that any of the animals that she was studying were transgender type animals, or she even suggested that one species that was male was interested in another species male. So, Jane Goodall was a recognized world biologist and a person that was decorated for her biological study, never came up with this DEI idea that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. And I just want to say, anybody that's listening to your station today, that if you think your children are going to become males if they're females and vice versa, you're only doing damage to them. And my background is I'm a constitutional attorney, retired. And as far as I'm concerned, anybody that's an adult that advocates for the mutilation of a child that's under the age of 18 years old, as far as I'm concerned, that's child abuse, and it's a criminal act. It's not just civil that you can sue the doctors. But as far as I'm concerned, those prosecutors that are in the United States, Canada, and in the West, they should be prosecuting these people for child abuse. If we're worried about raping children, the Democrats in the United States say, well, there can be no illegal immigrant in the United States that rapes or mutilates a woman or a child because we're on illegal land. You think of the logic of that, Larry? That's insanity. Yes. Okay? So the left...
You're on a roll, Tony. You're on an absolute roll. Not bad for a Canadian. Tony, I got to leave it there, sadly. I appreciate the call, but we're up against the clock here. But that is a great point. And by the way, try the Stash Cafe. It's a Polish restaurant in Old Montreal, right around the corner from the cathedral. It's incredible. Best Polish food you'll ever have. All right, more of your calls, 877-381-3811. The transgender victories, the common sense over radical, destructive, demonic ideology. We are winning. Do a victory lap, but then turn it back on the party that's promoted this. What's your question for a Democrat politician on this? It's Larry O'Connor, in for Mark Levin.
Mark Levin.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin. I can't overstate this. This doesn't happen. Okay, this doesn't happen. This was a cultural, political juggernaut. Every single movie, every single TV show, all of Hollywood, all of the music industry, all the late night shows, all the comedy shows, all the academia, all of politics, the local school boards, all the way up to the White House during the Obama administration, the Biden administration, they were all on board with this trans agenda. And it took you. It took you to have courage to stand up to that. And you have pushed back, and you're now winning on this issue, on what they were attempting to do to our children with these outrageous, barbaric transgender policies. We're going to look back on this era and just be so ashamed and absolutely horrified at what parents were talked into doing. I can't even imagine what those parents are thinking now. I mean, I have keep them in my prayers. Keep them in your prayers, please. The ordeal to have to make that choice and to be told that their child would kill themselves and it would be their fault. I can't even imagine. I hope you can't imagine. All right. I want to hear from, how about Steve in Valdosta, Georgia? That's line 4. Steve, thanks for holding on there. I'm Larry. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Yes, thank you, Larry. Congratulations on becoming a grandfather.
Thank you.
I'm 4 times. Yes, sir. It's really great. It's going to give you some really precious moments. So something really to look forward to.
I am looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm just calling, about the transgender
yes.
women in sports. And I don't think they should be allowed. And I heard Pete Buttigieg say the other day that it's discrimination to not allow transgender women to compete against biological women. So they're always trying to distort and reality, and they want us to reimagine things and fit their square peg into our round hole and force it in if they have to.
Well put.
So, but my question was about the transgender women. Why don't they start their own league? Why don't they go ahead and just compete amongst themselves?
Yeah. Well, because it's not about the athletic competition, Steve, and it's not about fairness, and it's not about discrimination, as Pete Buttigieg like to distort that phrase and that idea. It's not about any of that. It's about political power. It's about social influence. It's about upending civilizational norms. It's about making you feel untethered and unmoored and make you feel like everything that you've understood to be normal and things that you could count on, basic truths and realities that are no longer reality, no longer something that you can count on. It's about a radical transformation of our society. That's what it's about. Larry O'Connor, Mark Levin Show.